Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network, and today is what day is it? Thursday, June 25th. Is it Thursday? I gotta double check that. Keep losing track. Thursday, June 25th, 2020, and I'm doing another episode of my podcast, The Conscious Resistance Live, 109, episode 109. I usually do these on Fridays whenever I feel like doing them. I decided to do one tonight here on Thursday because I have so much information to share. There's been so many developments with the COVID-19 situation going on. There's also some other really interesting stories that I haven't got to cover in other videos. And I was going to make 5 different separate videos, but you know what? I decided, screw it. Let's just do it all as one live podcast. And then I will splice these up into shorter videos for those who want to just hear the individual stories. But in the meantime, thank you guys for being here. I want to remind you guys all to go to my website, which is theconsciousresistance.com. If you've never been to my website, you got to check it out. You can just go there and hit Control-D, bookmark my website so that you can stay plugged in to all of my work. This is where you can check out my books, my articles, essays, my documentaries, which are all available for free. The books are available to download for free. In the videos, we have interviews, we have news reports, we have my podcast, we have other podcasts like the show I co-host, Freethinker Radio with Johnny and Micah. John Bush has a podcast. My friend Danny, Isaac has a Lucid Truth. We've also got conscious music. You can buy shirts if you want to support us. There's so much you can do on this website, and I've really made it this way to make it a network that you could just come here and get lost in. If you really feel like it, you can go and just dive deep. I guarantee you, if you search almost any topic on our search bar here, you'll find either a report that I've done or that somebody on our team has done. And if not, hit me up and I'll see if we can put something together. But yes, please do bookmark our website. Follow us on minds.com right here. Follow us on Hive. Join our Discord channel. Join my text list, guys. This, I think, is the most important because, as I've said repeatedly, and I know some of you who've been here for a while, you're probably tired of hearing it. If you sign up for this little cloud here, then about 5 minutes ago, you would have got a text message from me saying, I'm going live right now. And you wouldn't have to rely on Facebook or YouTube or anybody else to alert you to when I go live and when I do stuff. One other point I want to make, well, 2 points. Let me first preface this podcast with saying there's going to be a lot of ranting tonight, more than likely. I do have 4 main stories I want to cover. But oh my God, guys, if you follow me on Facebook, maybe you have seen how much of a mess my Facebook page has been, in a good way, I would think, because there's a lot of interactions. And overall, if people are coming on to my page to tell me that I'm crazy or to debate me, whatever, at the end of the day, it means that there's more traffic coming onto my page. There's more traffic going on to hopefully going to my website and hopefully going to my work. But so I want to say that there's a lot of activity going on Facebook. So I got to rant a lot to get some of these thoughts out. But also, it's just, should I just start with a rant instead of really getting into the news? I'm going to post a link for the text list. Look, one of my main pet peeves, one of the things that drives me so fucking crazy is people who come onto my social media and start demanding things from me, especially people who I've never met in person. I don't know any of you guys. Like, I mean, some of you I've met in person at events and others I know from, the real world here in Houston and elsewhere. But I get these people that just show up on my platforms and say, they demand, okay, well, explain this all to me and tell me how this all works. And if I say, here's a link, here's an article, read that, or, I have written about this in my books if you guys want to go check it out. But they're like, no. I want you to write it all over again and say it just for me and start demanding things. And then when you don't comply, they're like, oh, of course, you have nothing to share. Of course, it's just such child mentality. And I had this happen on Twitter. I'm not going to get into that, but dealing with like grown adults, with a doctor who is out there serving somebody and like supposedly helping people, can't be bothered to do his own research about kratom, about fluoride and things like that. So I get called crazy. I get called the fluoride crazy person and these sort of things. But I do want to say that the reason I turned my Facebook back on when this whole coronavirus thing began, because you guys will remember, I've been off Facebook for 2 years. I turned Facebook on last year when I ran for mayor. I had it on for about 6-7 months, and then I turned it off again. And then when this whole shit hit the fan, I decided it's too important right now to be talking to people. And I often I get compliments on my, ability to articulate ideas or my writing and things like that. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and turn my Facebook on right now because it's an important time to reach people and connect with people. And so that's what I've been doing. I have the Derrick Broze personal page and I have the Conscious Resistance Network. And, I just get these thoughts and these rants all day and I just post them and it gets a lot of interaction and conversation going. But my goal, of course, is to hope that people will come check out what I'm about. But yet again, tonight, some lady was like, I just want to know your philosophy, you know, and so she just wanted me to write a whole book, you know, explaining my philosophy, I guess. But guess what? I did write a book. I've written 5 books. I've written 3 books specifically about my anarchist philosophy. It's called The Conscious Resistance, talking about holistic anarchism, holistic activism. And it's available to download for free. And I'm not going to rewrite the whole damn thing into some fucking comment so some old lady can try to understand me better or something. Like, I don't even know. Anyways. All right. So I'm going to try to keep the rants maybe spaced between these stories so it makes it easier for me to edit later. But let's go ahead and start with this. First things first. First off, shout out to State of Art Anarchy. If you haven't seen Carmen's work, go check out his channel. He's been doing some good stuff for a little while. And of course, thank you to the Fairy who's always hanging out here, and everybody who's like the usual listeners and you know, followers. I appreciate everything. And Alexandra says, hey Derrick, how are you? You post so much on Telegram. Your posts are great. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. I do have a Telegram channel as well. It should be linked whether you're watching on Facebook, Float, or YouTube right now. Look at the description below the video. You'll see a link to my Telegram channel, because despite all the posts I make on social media, despite all the videos I make, I post so much more, but I just dump it in the Telegram feed because I don't want to clog up my other social media. But I read essays, articles. Some of them are not political. They're just cultural. They're music. They're whatever. Just anything that's interesting to me, I dump it in the Telegram feed. It's called Derrick Broze's Daily News. So if anybody wants to check that out, let's go ahead and do that. All right. So let's get into this right now. Once again, my name is Derrick Broze. You're listening to the Conscious Resistance Network. Any shares are appreciated, guys. You know the whole story. You've heard it from everybody else in the independent media. We are battling algorithms, and it's up to those of us who create content to support each other, and those of you, if you don't create content but you just consume content, to please share it out there so that more people can find out what people like myself are doing. So I'm here in Houston, and the last couple of weeks that I've been home back to Houston from Mexico have just been really crazy for me after spending 2.5 months in Mexico, where there was no mandatory mask orders, where there was no lockdowns, where there's just completely different world, basically, to come back here to Houston as Houston and Texas are starting to open up. And then, of course, there's, oh no, things are starting to escalate. You know, the cases are on the rise. Some people are saying Houston is about to be the next epicenter of the country, and it's apocalyptic. You know, it's a humanitarian crisis. I've heard all these words thrown around, and I would say very loosely and rather dangerously in recent days about the situation in Houston. So I'm going to go through a couple of stories in Houston. First, I'm going to show you guys what they're saying, and then we're going to talk about some of the facts and things that don't seem to add up. We're also going to talk about masks today because, you know, mainly when I've been talking about masks, I've stuck to my personal view that as an anarchist, the government should never get involved. The government should never be mandating, threatening to fine businesses or individuals if they don't comply. I don't care. I'm sorry, guys. Pandemic or not, I don't agree with it. I will not shift or budge on my principles. So I've mainly been sticking with that kind of approach. Also, I do want to say, friends, I know some of you are very harsh to people who wear masks, and that's fine. But I know people who wear masks for various reasons, and they're not necessarily sheeple. They're not delusional or scared necessarily. Many of them think they're doing so, or they say they're doing so out of compassion, and I tend to believe them. They are doing what they believe is the most compassionate act, and that's fine. But I think what I've been trying to drive home is that if the data isn't correct, and if the virus or the pandemic, I know some of you think there's no virus at all, but I'm going to set you guys aside for a moment and say that if this is not as bad as we've been told, then we have to kind of step back and say, wait, shouldn't we then question everything that they're putting us through right now? Shouldn't we step back and say, well, then is this mask order necessary? Are these business shutdowns necessary? Is disrupting the economy necessary? Because, you know, some folks, when they hear that, when you talk about the economy, like, oh, you care more about money than lives. I just think people are economic illiterates, and they don't understand that what is going on with the economy and the repercussions that we are going to see now and in the coming months and years are going to kill way more people than this virus will. And that's just the reality. As people lose their jobs, lose their life, lose their living, you know, everything that they depend on, end up more in the streets. Like, we're going to see all those repercussions. So let me just show you this that I came across. Mayor Turner, who is the mayor that I ran against when I ran for mayor, says he is considering a board of shame to identify businesses violating capacity guidelines. I mean, this is just the height of statism and authoritarianism to me. Mayor Sylvester Turner said Wednesday he is considering a board of shame to identify local businesses, bars, and clubs that are violating the coronavirus health guidelines and the Harris County mask order. He says Houston police departments and fire departments will monitor businesses to determine if they are complying with occupancy limits and requiring customers and employees to wear masks. Some businesses have already lost their alcohol license this week. However, the city said they will not put anybody in jail for failing to comply. So you just face a fine of $1,000. And again, if you've been out of work or your business has been shut down for a couple of months, $1,000 fine could be the end of your business altogether. So it's a very real thing. And they want people to feel that weight. Like they want them to know, like, we're going to fine you. It's a threat. That's how the government operates. So he continues and he says, the confidence of the customer will determine the viability of the business. We want people to be good partners and good citizens. If you are not, you need to go on the board of shame. So Houston has a total of 16,000 cases. Now, guys, I'm going to go through some numbers, and I know it's easy to get lost in the numbers and the math and everything, but just Houston, the greater Houston area, has 4.5, probably 5 million when you really expand some of the suburbs around Houston that are starting to become their own cities. But even the inner city is 2.5 million people. So they're saying the city's total cases. Now, if this is wrong, you guys, blame it on Channel 2 Houston, because they're saying right here that Houston's health officials announced 987 new cases on Wednesday. Now, 987 new cases, we got to remember, that doesn't mean people are like on their deathbed, they're about to die. It just means 987 people apparently tested positive for COVID. And that's if you even trust the test, which I don't. And that brings the total to 16,000 new cases, 16,000 total cases. So think about that. 2.5 million people, 16,000 cases. I mean, somebody do the math real quick and tell me what low of percentage that is, because we know that the overall average, as we're going to show, the infection fatality rate is something like 0.5, 0.6%, maybe even lower. And Turner did admit, now it's interesting, this is how the news works. They don't really make things clear for people to take it in and understand. But think about this. He said more than 90% of the cases that were announced on Wednesday, these cases, these 987 new cases for the total of 16,000 cases, stem back to tests that were conducted between June 14th and June 22nd. So this is from a couple of weeks ago, people who were tested, and now they're just kind of adding the new numbers. So there's a new spike because of tests from a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, that makes sense, right? That doesn't mean there aren't going to be even more cases on, the current period, but I'm just saying, think about that. These are tests from 2 weeks ago that are just now starting to come back, the 22nd, right? So maybe some of them are 4 days old, but it's not like, I don't know. I hope I've made my point. The city also announced 7 new deaths, bringing the total to 204. Again, 204 people have died, and I'm so sorry that has happened, and I hope that their families are okay, and, we can talk about that. But 204 people out of 2.5 million people, maybe 4.5 million people in the greater Houston area. I mean, it's freaking crazy. So Turner basically goes on here to say that, that he might have to do things that people, might not agree with the authority he has. Let me show you the authority. He says, we are going to find a way to get on top of the situation, even if that means, depending on what I see, to push the envelope and assume the authority that some say I don't have. What the hell does that even mean? He's going to assume authority that some say he doesn't have. What kind of authority does he think he needs that doesn't have? I mean, these are the really kind of crazy things that we need to think about. And you don't have to be in Houston to be concerned about this, because I want you guys to go back to February and March when this whole thing started. And I reported on this in Houston, and I called the city of Houston to try to get more information. They acted like I was crazy. But all of the mayors around the country, and then eventually the states, have issued emergency orders, right? And in Houston, the city council voted. There was only one council member that tried to stop it. The city council basically voted to give the mayor indefinite emergency powers. So indefinite emergency powers. You understand that? And of course, it's a government, and it's a government edict. So it's very vague. They don't really explain, well, what are these powers? It says he can do whatever is necessary in the interest of public health. I guarantee you guys, if this shit progresses, that means they will try to implement this same thing, and says businesses will be fined if they don't get their customers to show proof of vaccination. They might not literally come into our homes and hold us down and vaccinate us, but they will make it difficult to operate without, having your immunity passport or digital certificate or whatever. And so is this the kind of authority that Mayor Turner here in Houston wants? Because he said he's going to push the envelope and take authority that some people think he shouldn't have. So we're going to continue the conversation on Texas here. This is a list of the Texas counties that have enacted mask orders, and it includes Harris County, where I'm at here in Houston. But there's a list of people who are so far just recommended. And I think some of this has changed as Texas is starting to, we're being told it's being overwhelmed with cases. Now, just let's get on down here. And it's interesting. This is, again, another example of how the mainstream media works, right? Scroll down to the very bottom of the article. Oh, and this last line, all in all, there have been 2,000 deaths in Texas. Okay, so we'll go back over here. How many deaths in Houston? So there's 16,000 cases in Houston. There's a total of, where's the deaths? 204 deaths in Houston. 204 deaths in Houston. 2,100 deaths. Then let's just be generous and imagine and say that there were more people that came up dead related to COVID. Of course, we have to add the caveat that we know that the CDC guidelines have told hospitals that they should write down COVID on the birth certificate if somebody is suspected to have had COVID-19 or if they died with it, but not necessarily from it. And, of course, the mainstream said that's just a right-wing talking point, but you can go to the CDC website and see it for yourself. So even if we trust their 2,100 deaths were actually from COVID-19, and let's just be generous and say the numbers went up, it's 2,500 deaths in Texas. And as of Wednesday, there's 204. We'll throw another 100 on there. I'm not trying to throw a bunch of deaths on there, but let's just be generous with this and give the establishment the benefit of the doubt. There's 300 deaths in Houston, let's say. There's 2,500 deaths in Texas as of today. And again, I'm raising those numbers. But even those numbers, 2,500 in the entire state of Texas. Like I said, Houston has 2.5 to 4 million people in Houston alone. Then you got Dallas, another major city. You got Austin, you got San Antonio. You got other cities that are smaller. And there's been 2,000 deaths. So everything that is taking place right now, and I get it, like people are like, better safe than sorry, right? I'm not trying to sit here, we should just do nothing necessarily. But as we're about to get further into, we're going to see that the numbers aren't really quite what they've been telling us. And again, I hope you guys are enjoying this. If you're just tuning in, this is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network. We're focusing on Houston and Texas for these first couple stories. And then we're going to kind of broaden the scope and talk about what's going on with coronavirus elsewhere. And then I promise you, I've got a couple of stories that are not related to coronavirus, but there's just so much to cover right now. And I know we're all sick of hearing about it, but we have to dissect this information. We have to push back against the propaganda. And even the people who are well-meaning and who are compassionate and who are believing the mainstream story, we have to show them that there is more than what we're being told. So that brings me to my next Houston related story. So you have people like Dr. Peter Hotez, who some of you may know. He's been on Joe Rogan. He's a very vocal vaccine advocate. He's the professor and dean of Baylor College of Medicine here in Houston. And he goes on CNN. He's been on MSNBC, basically making doomsday predictions, saying that Houston is about to hit the fan, that, we're about to run out of ICU beds and it's apocalyptic and all this stuff. And then today, the leaders of Houston's 4 largest hospitals say that capacity is in good shape as coronavirus cases increase. The CEOs of Houston Methodist. So for those who don't know, Houston has a giant medical center. We have probably more hospitals than any other city in the country, if not, the North America. I don't know for certain, but I know that Houston is just hospitals everywhere. But the CEOs of the biggest hospitals, Houston Methodist, Memorial Hermann Health System, St. Luke's Health, and Texas Children's, held a virtual news conference aimed at reassuring the public that the systems are ready to handle whatever that may come. Recently, it says numbers by the Texas Medical Center showed that 97% of intensive care beds were occupied and that they were on track to exceed 100%. Like they were saying, like, today we're going to hit 100%. Like, oh my God, they've been having everybody freak out. And so Dr. Mark Bloom of Houston Methodist said that the numbers don't tell the full story. He said, just that the number is being misinterpreted. And quite frankly, we're concerned that there is a level of alarm in the community that is unwarranted right now. So they go on to say that they do think cases are increasing and they think Houstonians should do everything they can to flatten the curve. But Dr. David Callender of Memorial Hermann says we have plenty of capacity. And this is Lena Hidalgo, who issued the mask order. The CEOs said they have sustained surge protection plan in place, meaning other beds and other rooms could be used to house patients if become necessary. And this is their live stream. I'm going to post this link. I highly, highly recommend. I listened to just a little bit of it earlier. I haven't got to listen to the whole thing. But guys, listen to what these guys are saying. Now, you could argue, okay, well, they're the CEOs of the hospitals, and they don't want to look bad, so they're going to fill us with a bunch of BS to try to tell us that everything's okay. But I mean, don't you think if things were about to get bad, that these guys, instead of trying to paper over it and make it sound good, they would say, we are really at capacity. We need some help. Please take care of yourself. But instead, in this talk, they basically cast doubt on that whole doomsday scenario. Now, again, they recommend masks and social distancing and all those things. But at the end of the day, the 4 CEOs of the largest hospitals in Houston are saying there's some misinformation going around. There's, people are being told these stories when it's not exactly accurate. So just to put this all into context, Mayor Turner is calling for board of shame for businesses who violate mask orders and saying he's going to push the envelope and take more authority. Counties across Texas are starting to mandate masks while the death count, and I know it's not just death, right, guys? I know somebody's like, Derrick, it doesn't just about death. And I agree. There are studies that have shown people getting lung scarring, kidneys. There was even one, and I don't know if it's still current. Somebody said it got taken back, talking about affecting testosterone in men. So the point is, there's a lot that we don't know about this, right? Even if you survive, doesn't mean you're okay. But there are people who've gotten it or been told they had it, and they really were like, I had it and I didn't notice anything. Now that's obviously, it depends on the person. There's a lot of factors. How about we talk about personal responsibility? How about we talk about people who eat like shit and live like shit and don't get exercise? I'm not trying to shame anybody, but I'm just saying you are responsible for your own life. You are responsible for your own health. You make your own personal decisions, and you should stop trying to make the world deal with your decisions. So, we all have to accept that. So mask orders are being put in place. Mayors threatening board of shame and to take more power. And we're being told the hospitals are at full capacity, but meanwhile, the CEOs are saying otherwise. So, that's just some of the information coming out of Houston. I'm going to post these links really briefly for you guys, so everybody who wants to see them can check that. Especially, I hope that some of the people who've been arguing with me and on all day on Facebook are watching this, but more than likely they're not. I've noticed that people who like to argue, they don't really take time to go. I don't want to even just generalize. I'm just saying, dude, it's frustrating because Facebook and social media is more of a place for me to kind of blow off steam. It's not like when I'm writing a book or an article, like I sit down, I take time, I think out my arguments, and I really, really make sure that they're sound and that I'm confident with them. But when I'm on social media, I'm posting rants, I'm posting things that just pop in my head. And I'm also dealing with managing a Telegram page, a Float page, a Minds page, a Hive page, 3 different Facebook pages, an email that's overwhelming me and constantly full, thinking of new videos and articles and writing a book right now as well. And I'm not trying to give you guys a sob story. My point is, like, sometimes I can be an asshole to people online. I call people dumbass sometimes, and later on I feel guilty about it. Sometimes I don't, because people are dumbasses. But Facebook and social media is not the place to get to know Derrick Broze or the work I do. I think the best way to get to know my work is by this: listening to my podcasts, reading my books, reading my articles. That's where my work's going to be found. So with that in mind, there are a couple of things I want to share from Facebook, some thoughts that have been coming to my mind. And I did a video about one of these recently, but let's just look at this. So I'm going to read it to you guys. Please tell me how the following headlines make sense. And these are all different headlines that I have the links for. Black Americans face higher COVID-19 risk. Black people 4 times more likely to die from COVID-19. Only white people are required to wear masks in this Oregon county. Here's why. And then a couple days later, Oregon County drops its masks exemption for people of color. Now, as I said here, I'm not trying to get into racism or any of that sort of thing. And if you're racist, fuck off and leave. But if COVID-19 affects everyone, don't you think that a mask mandate is supposed to be for everyone? And again, I don't support mask mandates. I don't support racism. I don't support the government getting involved in that. But it's just weird. Like it's the intersecting of the Black Lives Matter kind of racism conversation that's happening at the same time as the COVID-19 conversation. And they're kind of molding into one, and it's turning into really weird, insane stuff like this. Now, even further, the other video I did recently about the 1,000 healthcare workers from the University of Washington's Division of Allergy and Infectious Disease, they released a letter telling the police not to use COVID-19 as an excuse to shut down the protests. They said, quote, "As public health advocates, we do not condemn these gatherings as risky for COVID-19 transmission. We support them as vital to the national public health and to the threatened health specifically of Black people in the U.S. We can show that support by facilitating safe, blah, blah, blah." So then they go on to say, however, this should not be confused with a permissive stance on all gatherings, particularly protests against stay-home orders. So they're basically saying, like, cops, please don't disrupt or, use COVID-19 as an excuse to go shut down Black Lives Matter protests or protests about racism generally. But by the way, this doesn't apply to those crazy people who keep going out there and protesting lockdowns and protesting stay-home orders and protesting masks. I mean, come on. It's clear that this issue is becoming politicized. And as I said, I've got links to all these things. And And I don't know. I want to know your thoughts on that. Like, I don't post this just so I can hear myself think. Like, am I crazy? Does this not make sense? Does it make sense to you guys? It doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not sure how it's supposed to be. How it's supposed to be. I don't know, common sense at all. Like, does this make sense to me, guys? Does it make sense to you? I don't know. It's just weird. These are the kind of things that I feel like are leading people to question and maybe even question things that shouldn't be questioned. You know what I mean? Like right now we're being told that there's an anti-science sentiment going around the country. Anthony Fauci, of course, who's connected to Bill Gates and nobody should trust him. He's been saying we have an anti-science sentiment going on. And Peter Hotez is going around saying these crazy anti-science, folks are out there spreading misinformation. And look, I'll be honest. You guys know, my regular followers, that I fact check bullshit. There is a anti-science mentality out there in the sense that some people automatically dismiss something if it comes from an official source. And that's just kind of another knee-jerk reaction. Just like I've told you guys before, just because it comes from the mainstream doesn't make it automatically fake. However, just because it comes from the mainstream doesn't make it automatically true. And just because it comes from YouTube doesn't make it automatically fake, and it doesn't make it automatically true. We have to use critical thinking, discernment, and understand that these situations we're dealing with, this is the real 4D chess. The 4D chess is not Trump's a good guy working with Q and all that bullshit. It's that the situations that we are facing, the flood that they talked about with Event 201, is multi-layered and it's complicated. It's not so simple like people want to make it out to be. So if we're going to survive and we're going to be able to take on all this propaganda, we got to be able to think deeper, and Exist Extinct has a good comment here. It's not anti-science, it's anti-corporate bullshit science. And I agree with that because, for example, for decades, 70 years now, we've been told that fluoride is good for us. And as you guys know, I've been covering the fluoride trial. None of the mainstream covered it. Most of the alternative media missed it as well, except for a couple of channels. And we've been called crazy for so long for questioning fluoride. And now, not only do we have studies, but we have a court of law where a federal judge is admitting that fluoride is dangerous and harmful to us. Yet you can still go talk to somebody right now, somebody who is uneducated and who doesn't pay attention and who isn't 10 to 12 hours of a researcher every single day like myself and some of you guys, and they can call you a conspiracy theorist. It's because they're uneducated, but they think they're informed. They think like, oh, they're so smug, and they'll post up Alex Jones' a tinfoil hat meme to you and say, oh, here you are. They'll post Dr. Strangelove and call you crazy. My point is that I don't think we need to be anti-science. I believe in the scientific method, but I am anti-scientism. And some people have a difficulty understanding that there is a religion, just like the religion of the state, the religion of government, statism, worship. Here's your flags, here's your songs, here's your priests. It's the same thing. There are people who have the same thing with scientism. If somebody's got a letter next to their name, or if they've got credentials, diplomas on the back thing, or they're wearing a lab coat, then they must be trustworthy. And obviously not all people, of course, but some folks are literally that lazy. But the laziness is on both sides. Truthers are very lazy too. Truthers just think that, oh, well, Derrick Broze said it, I can just trust it. Oh, James Corbett said it, I can just trust it. The point is we have to think for ourselves. Don't let people push you into this corner and call you anti-science just because you're questioning things. But at the same time, don't throw out all the scientific knowledge that we do have, and understand. And it's both ways, right? People who trust science blindly, they need to understand that science can be corrupted. Science is a business just like everything else. And I know some people hate when I say that, but it's true. There is a business of science, and there are people who benefit from keeping us in the dark and from spreading misinformation, so that's my whole point, a little rant about that. But I want you guys to think about that, because we are starting to be labeled anti-science. And I've been called that for a long time. I really don't care anymore, but I do see that sentiment. I see some of you guys out there who just automatically reject everything. And I'm going to call out the bullshit when I see it, whether you're in my audience or not, whether you follow me or not. If you follow me, if you end up on my page and I see you say some bullshit, I'm going to call that out, and you call out my bullshit too. We'll just make that agreement. So I want to show this other post with you guys. This is another Facebook post that I made related to this mask situation. So, and it took me a while to kind of solidify this thought. Usually when I post, guys, on Facebook or anywhere else, I post on YouTube, Float, etc. I take time and I try to mold these thoughts and really get them to be solid before I share them online. So this is what I came up with. I've been thinking about it, and I see the same arguments for forcing the masses to wear masks as I do in the debate over forcing the public to get vaccinated. When it comes to vaccines, people will argue that even if they've been vaccinated, it won't work, aka we won't reach herd immunity unless the majority of people are vaccinated. They also argue it's not about you. It's about those who are weak or immunocompromised. They also say you are selfish or anti-science if you don't want to get vaccinated. Now, when it comes to masks, people will also argue that if they are wearing a mask, it won't work unless the majority of people are wearing masks. They also argue it's not about you, you're being selfish because the immunocompromised and those with pre-existing conditions are at risk. Again, you are called selfish and anti-science for not cooperating. And I want to make it clear, there's a lot of misinformation about the mask. We're about to expose some of that. But most people wear the mask not for themselves, but because they've been told that they sneeze or they breathe or whatever, it's going to get other people sick. So just like with the vaccines, though, people get vaccinated supposedly to protect themselves, but then all of a sudden it's like, no, it's not about me. I'm protecting that immunocompromised person. So I see some of the same arguments. First, the argument for herd immunity via vaccines is not the same as herd immunity from naturally getting an illness and your body being able to fight it on its own. Second, as many people before me have argued, if the vaccines work, then why is a vaccinated person going to worry about those who are not? I know it's not about you, but isn't the point of getting a vaccine to protect the person getting it? Also, isn't the point of wearing a mask to protect the person wearing the mask from breathing in COVID-19? But I already know, again, it's not about you, it's about other people. But I'm just, I'm kind of pointing out the same arguments. And basically the point of this is that the argument that people must be forced to make health decisions for the good of the public is exactly why collectivism is dangerous. It attempts to erase individual choice and agency in the name of some apparent greater good. It's even harder to argue against it when it's related to health because so many people have an emotional reaction and they trust the official sources of information. And I posted this on Facebook and it got several hundred comments, like through, on this page and on the Conscious Resistance. I posted on YouTube and a lot of you guys commented there too as well. So clearly people have thoughts and feelings and opinions about that. And I don't think it's apples and oranges, guys. I think it's very much the same issues. People don't see that this is not going to go away. This is the new fucking normal that they keep pushing. This is the new normal. I'm working on a video that's going to be explosive, I believe, and an article for The Last American Vagabond about the Great Reset. And if you guys follow Spiro or a couple other people, James Corbett, you've probably heard about this. But so far, I don't think most people are aware of the Great Reset and what is being planned right now. Also, I've written about and talked about the Rockefeller lockstep scenario, Bill Gates Event 201. Just like every other major event throughout American history for the last 100 years, there seems to have been some sort of pre-knowledge or planning for what was coming. That doesn't mean the virus is fake. It doesn't necessarily mean that nobody's dying. I know some of you would disagree, but that's not what I believe. But what it does mean is, like with 9/11, these people from the predator class, they talked about it before it happened. It's like they knew it would happen, or maybe they allowed it to happen, and then they take advantage of it. At the end of the day, we probably will never know the truth. Was it, engineered thing? Was it a bioweapon? Was it accidentally released, or was it purposely released? As I've said before, way back when I did the whiteboard a couple months ago, we probably will never know. But the point is, all of this is going to result in a loss of freedom, and it is already happening. I know some people are like, oh, loss of freedom. What freedoms are you losing? You just got to wear a mask. Yes, but you're only thinking right now. You're thinking that these people are benevolent and they care about you and they have your best interest at heart. You think that this is only going to last for a couple of months and then everything's going to go back to normal. But I'm sorry, my friend, this is not how it's going to work. And as Rose says, if you don't stop or do comply to small stuff, how is one going to have the strength or courage to not go along for the big stuff? And I totally agree about that. That if we are not willing to even push back in some ways and reject their bullshit, then what is going to happen whenever the bigger things come? If you're afraid to speak up and be the one to say, hey guys, maybe all the science isn't exactly what we've been told about the masks, or hey, maybe we should have a choice in what we do, whatever counter arguments you can think of, and have a polite discussion, whether on social media or in person with people, then you're probably not going to have the balls or the ovaries to stand up whenever they say, you can't work anymore unless you have this vaccine. You can't go anywhere unless you have your immunity passport, etc. This is why I wrote my book, guys, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. I'm not trying to make money. I'm trying to get you to download my book because I think it has tangible solutions. Download it for free. theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. It's called How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. The bulk of it is only 56 pages. Read it, absorb it, take it, make it your own, use it. We have a very brief window to do something. You can think I'm crazy. I'm past the point of giving a fuck anymore. As far as I'm concerned, I'm about to leave Houston next week. And most of these people that I'm arguing with on Facebook, I'll never see them again. And maybe some of you I'll never see again as well. So I don't really care about looking crazy. I don't care about being dismissed as people. I'm here to spread the truth as I find it and as I know it, and to keep researching and keep investigating. And I'm telling you, my friends, my brothers and sisters, if you give a shit about your family, if you give a shit about your children, if you give a shit about the future, you need to wake up to the fact that we have a very brief window to do something. And I think that something is to exit out of these systems as quickly as possible. And that is what my book is about. It's called How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. So please go ahead and download it. Check it out on your own. Let's move on to the next story. These next two, this last one will be, I got a couple more coronavirus ones, and then we're going to move on. But these are the points now where we're going to start poking holes in the mainstream version of events. Again, this is Derrick Broze, the Conscious Resistance Network. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is coming from Reuters just today. Coronavirus may have infected 10 times more Americans than reported. Government experts, I know that's an oxymoron, believe more than 20 million Americans could have contracted the coronavirus, 10 times more than official counts, indicating that many people without symptoms have or have had the disease. Do you guys understand that? That means that 10 times the amount of people we've been told probably already had this thing, or you might have it right now. And again, people will say, yes, we know, Derrick, that's what we're talking about, asymptomatic. That's why you need to wear your mask, because you could be spreading it to the old grandma or to the kid who has cancer or to somebody else at risk. I get that. But what I'm pointing at here, guys, is that this means that this thing probably spread all around the United States, all around the world. I've had friends and family who say they think they got it back in fall. And I know that's anecdotal, but I've had people email me as well and say, I think I got it in February before they made an announcement, or January, December, or even people who did get it as far as they went and took a test. The test said they're positive, they got sick, and they got better. And, what that would mean then is that we are probably at some point already getting close, if not already there, with herd immunity. And instead of locking down everybody, forcing everybody to wear a mask and doing all this, what I've been arguing the whole time is that we need to focus on the people who are the weakest. Focus on the retirement homes instead of letting those people die and just being surrounded in places that are already kind of filthy. Focus on the people who are immunocompromised. Keep the elderly safe. And they've been saying that kids are less likely to get it. I know I've seen some other conflicting reports saying, oh, now all the young kids are getting it. It's hard to know what's really right. Even with this story, right? How much can we really trust when it's coming from the CDC? The CDC, who we know has lied about so many other things. But if they're willing to say this, and of course, these sort of stories, this is just like a 2-minute read. It's like a couple of paragraphs from Reuters. These aren't the kind of things that make the mainstream news on CNN right now. CNN is probably just telling you guys, if we go tune in right now, CNN is probably just telling everybody to be afraid, and this and that. It's getting so much worse. They don't mention, oh, by the way, the infection rate, might have been way higher than we originally thought. And that means that you might have already had it. So, let's all not freak out and wear our immune system down and make ourselves more susceptible to illness. But fuck it, fear sells, right? All right. So this one, Africa, guys. Africa, beautiful land. I've never been, but from the pictures and the history that I know and the history that I hope to learn in my lifetime, it is a beautiful place, a beautiful land filled with beautiful people with a horrible history of being stolen from their land and brought to America as slaves. And then, of course, people like Bill Gates and others have essentially used them for their eugenic experiments to test out different vaccines and things of that sort. I have a link. Let me see if I can pull this up. Well, I'll focus on this story for a moment. And then I have another link that goes into testing of contraceptive vaccines. And I mean, it's just the amount of experimentation and things that have happened to Africa are just so wrong. And now they are apparently going to be the first participants in a COVID-19 vaccine trial, which started yesterday. Now, according to this, it's volunteers, so at least nobody's being forced. But unfortunately, these volunteers have, again, been conditioned and, told that they need to rush to get the vaccine, and otherwise they could die, despite the fact that Africa, it doesn't have a whole lot of deaths. But these volunteers received injections developed at the University of Oxford in Britain, while officials said the continent of 1.3 billion people cannot be left behind. The large-scale trial is being conducted in South Africa, Britain, and Brazil. South Africa has nearly 1/3 of Africa's confirmed cases, with more than 106,000, including more than 2,100 deaths. But again, like, you have to compare that to the total population. Like, those numbers sound like a lot, like 106,000, like that's a lot of people. 2,100. Nobody wants anybody to die or get sick, but we have to put it in context. The country's latest Tuesday report said its biggest one-day death toll was 111 people. The African continent has nearly 325,000 cases as countries loosen restrictions. So they go on there and basically say that things are speeding up. So the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, coincidentally named just after the American CDC, the Africa CDC, said that things are picking up, and unless we act now, Africa is at risk of being left behind on the global vaccine. And so, I mean, think about it, guys. We were told that in the US, they might have a vaccine. Just in case you didn't hear, Fauci did say a vaccine is coming by the end of 2020, early 2021 at the latest. And even that is rushed. You know, Operation Warp Speed is condensing 10 years worth of research on vaccines using an mRNA vaccine, which has never been tested before, and condensing that down into months. But these people are already getting tested on. They're already using a vaccine on these people. And I mean, they're volunteers, but what I'm going to do, because this is just kind of let's touch base on this story, the deeper investigation we need to do, and I would love some of you guys, you internet sleuths, to help me out with this. We need to find out more about these studies that are being conducted. We need to wait to see the results, because the thing is, they might publish some results down the line and quietly say, oh, by the way, a few people were injured and they got harmed, and it was minimal, so don't worry about it, the vaccine's safe. My point is, we have to keep our eye on the ball and talk about this. The other thing I want to mention, let me see if I can just do this. Expose Bill Gates. There you go. Let me show you guys this real quick while we're talking about Africa. You guys remember from Expose Bill Gates Day a couple weeks ago? I don't know if I ever told you. We made it on RT and elsewhere as we had it trending and viral all day. People calling out Bill Gates for his crimes in Africa and elsewhere. And there's this woman who I'm going to try to get an interview soon. I don't want to try to butcher her name. Obin Nuju Ikoja. I'm sure it's a beautiful name when pronounced correctly. I apologize. But she commented, I see that Expose Bill Gates is trending. I'm heartened by this because I've followed his wife's work in Africa for almost 10 years, and I've been trying to expose their population control agenda in Africa. I wrote about them in my book, Target Africa. Read it. These people hate us. And she got 6,000-7,000 interactions and follows. So I'm going to reach out to her. She's an African woman who is an author as well, and clearly has done the research on Melinda Gates' work with vaccines in Africa. And it's something that needs to be exposed. You know, I don't want to just talk about it as an American looking from the outside. I would love to talk to an African activist, an African author who understands this fully. So, for those who think it's a conspiracy theory, you're listening to Snopes too much. I'm sorry. You need to wake up and realize that these people have a eugenics agenda, and they're using COVID-19 as a way to rush out these vaccines, and they're testing it on poor people in Africa and volunteers and people who might have just, again, been conditioned to think that that's what's best for them. The other thing I want to remind you guys as we're wrapping up our coronavirus talk for today, this is an article I wrote back in April. New reports indicate U.S. and China collaborated on coronavirus research prior to COVID-19 outbreak. And I think this deserves another look. If you never read this article, I did a video about it, but if you've never read it, please go back and read it. It also talks about those arrests at Harvard and asks whether or not they are related, in any way to what we're seeing here now. I'm not going to go over the article again because I already have done that in previous videos, but I am going to share it in the comments for you guys to see, because I know, again, some of you think this is totally fake, the virus isn't real, blah, blah, whatever. I think that you're completely ignoring the history of the U.S. government studying biowarfare and studying to use whatever you want to call them, germs, viruses, exosomes, whatever. They've studied how to weaponize them, and they did it after 9/11 with anthrax. They were continuing to do research at Fort Detrick and other places in the U.S. And there's a whole other story in there, and I know Ryan from Last American Vagabond has done a great job covering it. So if you haven't heard this whole thing about the Chinese government and the U.S. collaborating, because Trump once says this is the China virus, but hey, Trump, your people were funding this. And yes, some of it happened before Trump came into office, under the Obama administration, but Trump's working with the people too. So make any excuses you want, but it doesn't really matter. That doesn't change the facts. The final story I want to talk about when it comes to coronavirus, mass surveillance could be here to stay. Experts say, oh, those crazy conspiracy theorists were right again. Use of invasive digital and physical tracking measures soars as the pandemic spreads. And here you go see a police officer operating a drone carrying a QR code for drivers to register their vehicles online when entering Shenzhen, China. So you got to go, you hit the QR code with your phone and then plug in, and they know where you're at, and they can tell you if if you're safe to go in, and if not, sorry, you got to go back. It's these things are coming. Again, read my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. They're already here. This has been going on for years. I've been reporting on surveillance technology since 2010. I first learned about it because the Houston Police Department started monitoring me and the Houston Freethinkers activist group that I started. I learned about Stingray cell phone surveillance. I learned about automatic license plate cameras. I learned about fusion centers. I learned about real-time crime centers. I learned about drones flying overhead. I learned about drone planes with DRT cell phones scooping boxes. I learned about spot shot or shotgun detectors. I learned about smart lights that can listen and hear you. I learned about biometrics, retinal scanning, facial scanning, gait detection that can tell how you walk. All of this is unfolding and has been unfolding for years. All they are doing now is using COVID-19 as a way to fast track all of it. And of course, 5G is a big part of that. Top 10 VPN, a pro-digital privacy website that reviews secure internet connection software, has maintained a database since March of digital and physical surveillance measures implemented to fight the virus. As of Wednesday, their database showed digital tracking was used in 35 countries with contact tracing apps in 28 countries, half of which use GPS location data. Meanwhile, more than half of the apps do not disclose how long users' data is stored. And Samuel Woodhams of the website's digital rights organization said the number of countries using digital tracking and physical surveillance technologies has steadily risen. There are a few countries on Earth that haven't implemented increased surveillance during pandemic. And of course, Israel is behind a large part of this. There was a controversy recently where they said, oh, Israel is, we're going to shut down our contact tracing program because it's invading privacy. But then just today they announced they're bringing it back. And it's not just Israel. It's not just China. It's India. It's Norway, lots of different places. Of course, Norway actually suspended their app because they actually maybe care about privacy a little bit. But in the United States, since 9/11, if anybody in the audience, you guys ever tried to talk to anybody about privacy? You ever been told, well, you use a phone, right? Well, you're on Facebook. It's like people will come up with any excuse they can to downplay the situation rather than take it in and think critically and say, okay, maybe this person's right. Maybe we are being tracked and monitored everywhere we go. Maybe I should be concerned about that. Maybe I should think deeper about this. How is this going to affect me in the long run? No, instead it'll just say something snarky like, but you're on Facebook, but you have a cell phone. Well, if you like privacy, then you might as well just get off the internet. It's like, no critical thinking, shut down and just say something stupid and laugh about it as if that ends the argument. But it doesn't. And if you give a shit again, brief window, freedom's over here. This is what we used to have. Right here is this window of what they're calling the new normal, which will lead to the great reset. We need a great reset. We need a reset that resets humanity and encourages people to honor self-ownership and individuality and personal choice and personal responsibility and all these important values and permaculture, working with the land, living in harmony, healing ourselves, healing our trauma, healing our minds and our hearts, empowering each other, lifting each other up. That's the reset we need, not this crazy reset shit that they're working on. The reset that they want, the reset that they are pushing, means less freedom, less privacy, more control, and it doesn't mean good things, my friends. So again, if you care about what's going on, question the narratives that are happening around you. Please share the information. If I didn't give a shit about the world, then I'd already be in Mexico, guys. I'd already be doing everything that I have planned, building the conscious agora, the permaculture community I want. I'd be doing that already. But instead, I am spending my time trying to research, and I don't do this just to hear myself talk. I don't do it so I can get rich or something. I don't make a lot of money doing this. I'm barely able to survive, but I do it because when I woke up in 2010, I was terrified. I was very, very concerned with everything I was finding. I was waking up to the reality that, we have pedophiles running things and secret societies really, some of you might not like that. But secret societies really run the world. They are the predator class. It's not your governments. It's not those people that are actually in power. And when I started to recognize this and started to really understand what was going on, I freaked out. And I started talking to everybody I can, everybody I could that would listen, people who didn't want to listen. I really quickly found out who thought I was crazy and who was like, I see the same things. I'm paying attention too. And from that point, guys, I decided that I was going to commit my life to doing everything I can to spreading awareness. So I sit on my ass a lot when I'm at home, and I sit here and I research. I take in the emails that you guys send me. I look up the things you send me. I watch the crazy videos. I watch the mainstream videos. I do all this research because I want us to have an option. And I don't have all the answers. You know, I've been called a narcissist lately and selfish and so many names the last couple of days, and I really don't give a fuck. But if people understood the amount of effort and time that myself and other people put into our days to try to educate ourselves and to share with other people, I think that they would actually give us a little more credibility. But instead, we're dismissed. That's not the world we live in, and I understand that. But I just want you guys to understand that I'm doing this because I care about you. I don't even know some of you, and some of you probably drive me fucking crazy on social media with things you say. But at the end of the day, if we make it to the conscious agora, we make it to this place where we can take care of each other and build a better world, I will be happy to see you there. I will forget about all the Facebook arguments we had, all the YouTube comments and all the disagreements we had. And I will just say, holy shit, dude, we made it. Oh my God, brother, sister, I'm so thankful that you got out, or you paid attention, and that you rose up and you took that power that you have inside of you and you felt it in your body and your lungs and your hands, and you used it to make change, and you used it to educate your mind, used it to heal your heart, used it to empower other people. Because lately, let me just tell you guys, I've been feeling it. When I stop and I slow down, I can feel it rising up through my feet, up through my body, into my hands. It's anger, it's passion, it's rage, it's compassion. It's this unquenchable desire to live a life that I know I deserve, and to do whatever I can to help other human beings live the life they deserve. That is what I feel. I'm alive. I'm a human being that is living and breathing, and that refuses to comply and refuses to submit, and will never, ever bow down to the mob, will never, ever let them control my thoughts, the way I live, who I am, and I will always be an unflinchable me. And sometimes that means I say fuck. Sometimes that means I'm all over the place, but that is me, and you are you with all your flaws. But I know if we really tap in to that energy, that collective energy that was within all of us, that power, that the creator that I believe in, the creator that is beyond name and beyond religion, that breathed life into all of us. If you stop and you slow down, my friends, you'll feel it. You'll feel it in your hands, in your heart, and you'll know that you're alive. This is what it's like to be alive. That's one of my affirmations I like to use. So this is what it's like to be alive. I bumped my toe. Oh, so this is what it's like to be alive. I get a heartache. This is what it's like to be alive. I'm human. I try to do my best to let myself celebrate it. We're human beings. We're flesh. We're blood. But we're also so much more than that. And I know that this is why we're here. I know that we were put here on this planet for this purpose. Even those of you who totally disagree with me and think that I'm nuts, who for some reason are listening to me right now. I know that we're here for a purpose, and maybe it's to challenge each other. Maybe it's to help push each other so that we grow. But as I said, if we can end up in the same place, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but I know that you're alive, that you're taken care of, and that you are living your dreams, then I think that we will all be better off for that. These people want to divide us. They want to break us down. They want to separate us. They want us to think that we just need to fight in the streets. It's the left, it's the right, it's all this bullshit. And some of you guys are falling for it again. You're falling for it again. You don't see how you're being divided in so many ways. There's at least 5 layers of deception that I see going on right now that we don't have time to get into right now. All I'm saying, my friends, is keep thinking critically, keep questioning everything, but also ground yourself. Don't get lost in questioning everything that you can't even tell what's what. And then you just throw your hands up. I don't want to think anymore. It's too much. It's too much. I give up. Whatever happens, happens. We need to stay heart-centered. We need to balance our logical mind, our critical thinking mind, with our compassion, with our heart. That's what I'm trying to do, at least. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all so much. I got one more important story to cover, and we're going to get the hell out of here for the night. go relax a little bit. It's been a long day reading and just getting into everything. I'm going to share some of these comments. Somebody says, I need some of that Kratom. I've never used Kratom. I don't use Kratom, but I definitely know that it helps people. A lot of people speaking very matter of fact about something that's not been proven to exist. In fact, its existence is disputed even amongst some in the medical community. I agree. Plant seeds to grow a movement. That's exactly what we're here for. Yeah, I know you feel it, Carmen. Just got to feel it within ourselves and know that we got the power within us. And even comments like this, we need Jesus. He isn't beyond name. Well, that's your personal choice. But the creator that I know is beyond man, woman, and it speaks to people in many names, because the creator knows that just because you're born in the US or born in a Christian nation, that that doesn't mean you have a monopoly on the creator and on the source energy. I wish more people would realize that, more people would understand that we are all here to be a family, to be taken care of. And, it's up to us to do that. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into this story. This is a weird one. This is totally different, non-COVID. This will be the last 10 minutes of the show, and then I'm going to get out of here. And I hope that I can do this justice so you guys will really feel what's happening here. Let's do it. So there's been some interesting developments in Milwaukee the last few days. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but there was, of course, protests going on. There was protests against police brutality. There was a house, this house that you're seeing right here, was burned down after a really crazy scene. And I honestly still can't quite get to the bottom of it, but I'm hoping some of my listeners out there who maybe know a little bit more about this, or maybe somebody was local. We are also going to reach out to some activists and see if we can get to the bottom of this, because what this has to do with, guys, this house right here is apparently known for sex trafficking and child trafficking. And while these protests were going on, some of the activists got word that there was kids that were being hid there. And so they decided to go there. And apparently some children did come out and they were rescued, and some were returned to their families. Other children, they said they don't know where they're at. And it ultimately resulted in this house being set on fire, which is unfortunate because probably some of the evidence is gone, whoever was involved in this. Now, in Houston, sometimes there's abandoned houses like this. And, if there's an abandoned house, somebody might go use it to get high in, or just to pass out in, or to commit crimes in, because it's an abandoned house. And that does happen. I don't know if that's what this situation was, but as far as I could tell, people were living in this house. And so the house burned Tuesday night. Milwaukee Police Department says that they have visited this house at least 27 times in the last 4 years. And you can see here all the different calls: shots fired, threats, stolen vehicle, welfare citizen, shot spotter. Now, of course, this is the technology I was talking about. They put it up in light poles, and it detects sound. So when somebody allegedly fires a gun, it turns on and it alerts the cops. But the problem is it's always recording, not just when guns are fired. But you see this, there's all these different shot spotter, battery, domestic violence, reckless use of WDV, property damage, theft. So they've been to this house a lot of times. They know about this house clearly. And the property, it's at 40 Street, 2120 LLC. It's who it's owned by. Michael Barsh, the registered agent. It's from 1903. And so let's look at this other one here. The cops involved here basically said that there was nothing to see here. They claim that the activists believe that there was young kids inside there, but they claim that there's no evidence. Now, this could be a case of maybe the activists were wrong. I've been out there at the protests. Some of these people, they get in mob mentality. And if somebody says, hey, there's kids over there, everybody just starts repeating it, and it could be wrong. But it could also be the cops trying to cover their ass for something they don't want people to know about. So it says 2 teenage girls missing since Sunday afternoon have been found, according to their family, and a house that a crowd believed to be connected to their disappearance has been burned. The confused situation erupted Tuesday afternoon after community organizers and others were alerted that 2 teenage girls and other missing children were spotted going between the house and a red van. Several dozen people gathered outside the house, and the Milwaukee Police Department was called. Community organizer Frank Nitti, who arrived on the site after a crowd had begun to gather, expressed his frustration with the police response time and a lack of action. He says, it took them so long to come to our community. And he said that an individual believed to have knowledge of the incident ran from a home to another home and later fled the scene. After police left, people broke windows at the second home, and officers in riot gear returned to the scene. So like I said, there was kind of this face-off between the cops and the activists. And let me show you one more. Yesterday, activists clean up around burned house as questions remain. So activists came back and they did, do some cleaning, try to keep the community nice. Obviously, they burned down the house. It might be frustration. It could be that somebody was trying to hide their own evidence. You never really know. Here's a local news report. Says 7 officers injured during civil unrest after house fire and search for missing girls. And there's the chief talking. I am going to show you guys a little bit of the press conference that they held. But so it's just, let me just show you a little video here. It's just crazy. I mean, this is such a weird situation. My buddy John Vibe sent this to me and I started, digging into it because so people hear that there might be children hidden in this house. So they go out to the house. Some people end up lighting the building on fire. You can see right here, people are looking around trying to find the kids. That's basically what you're watching right there. They're not looting that house. They're looking for kids. And then eventually, somehow, we don't know, someone set the house on fire and the cops get called and, they face off with the activists and all that. But the cops are being very... they say there's an ongoing investigation. They claim that this was just vigilantism and that the people need to let the cops do the investigation. There you can see the fire raging. But if there was evidence of missing girls, if there was any kind of plan, if there was, if it was more than just people stealing kids and taking them to this house, it's gone now, or at least a large majority of it is gone. You see the top of the house is burned. If there was any evidence in there, it's going to be hard to recover that. And then they eventually use tear gas on the people who are out there protesting and kind of going against the cops. Let me show you this press conference right here. Let me go ahead and 1 second, guys. I'm going to show you this press conference. Once again, this is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate all the support. And if you know anything about this story, please do post some comments. Let me know about this. I've never really, this is kind of new to me. But let's go ahead and check out this press conference.
You allow one house to burn. That means you allow the entire block to burn. And there's people in these residents that aren't going to move. They choose to live where they choose. And that's what we're all here for, is to preserve life. We cannot let this stuff happen. Thank you.
Chief, you had multiple people in the crowd upset and getting angry with police. They told us many, many times they don't believe Milwaukee police care or investigate when Black children go missing. And we also heard from multiple people in the crowd that a lot of those houses on that street have sex trafficking and have proved to be sex trafficking houses. Can you speak to those 2 points?
Absolutely. We investigate the information that is given to us. We can't allow an unruly crowd determine what that investigation is. What you had today is vigilantism. You had people take the law into their own hands and run off of information that has not been proven. We need to investigate that. That's what the police is here for. We need to determine what crime.
Okay, so I think you guys got the point there. I don't know if y'all could hear that clearly. I apologize if not. But this chief is basically going into the story and saying that, yes, they did find children, but again, he calls it vigilantism and says that, people need to let them do their job, but the community doesn't trust them. And they mentioned Frank Nitti. Frank Nitti is a local activist. Apparently, he's very prominent in Milwaukee. And I found his Facebook page, and he's got several different videos. You can see here, obviously, we're not going to go into all of them right now because they're all like about an hour long of him live streaming. But if you look right here, it says missing kids tracked to this house. That's Frank right there. This video's got 1.1 million views on Facebook, so people are obviously paying attention. He was live streaming on the scene. This is a second video of his called, I think, Track Kids to the House Part 2. He's got at least 4, maybe 5 of these. So I will post these videos in the comments in just a second. If anybody wants to dive into those, missing kids tracked to the house, you can watch the whole scene. Again, this one's got 1.3 million views. people are really paying attention and they're not trusting the cops. And if you listen to what Frank says in here, he basically says that the cops were totally downplaying the fact that kids were found at this house. Now, I don't have the evidence, of course, at the moment, but I would be skeptical of cops who aren't eager to go out there and investigate missing kids. And I also think it's a little odd that this whole building ends up getting lit on fire. Now, obviously it didn't burn down to the ground, but it is interesting and unfortunate to see that this happened. So if you have more information about this, please do share it with me. I'm going to be watching these videos tonight and trying to learn more about it. But Frank Nitti II on Facebook, if you find him, see right here, it says Missing Kids Tracked to This House, Part 4, 2 Kids Found, Power to the People. So they were clearly investigating and looking further into this. So he's got at least 5 videos of just the other day, Tuesday, showing the face-off between the cops and the activists and showing just everything that was taking place. So 4 kids found right here. And he says, we're going to find the rest. And yeah, it's just an interesting story, guys. Like I said, it's not COVID related, but for those of you who know that I do follow with missing children stories, and I also try to keep up with trafficking stories, I don't know. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just an isolated incident. Maybe that's just a house where some people, happen to get taken from. I don't know. It could be more than that. Either way, you guys go ahead and do the research. You investigate. You tell me what you think, and let's try to figure it out. I would love to dive deeper into this because honestly, guys, I don't always have the resources to do all the research I want. I try to do as much investigations as I can. I try to write articles and do these videos, and it's a lot. And I'm just a one-person team. Thankfully, I have Miriam to help with like some emails. I've got a couple online volunteers for social media. But as far as content creation and research investigation, this is just a one-person team. And I'm okay with that. My point is, though, I want this to be a crowdsourced investigation. I want this to be something that we collaborate on and we work together so that we can get to the bottom of this. Now, the other thing I want to mention to you guys, I was talking about the 5 layers of deceptions. I was talking about the establishment's plan to divide. And I want to share with you one article that I put out 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, and it has unfortunately come very true. It was originally published on Activist Post, but Ryan from The Last American Vagabond aggregated it. It's called The Establishment's Plan to Divide, Donald Trump, Fake News, and Russia. And unfortunately, this article, I think, was very prescient. I don't have a crystal ball. I was just looking at the situation of what was going on as the independent media was being attacked and as the people were believing that Donald Trump was somehow the anti-establishment candidate and how fake news was being used to go after people and the Russia meme was being used to go after people. And I could see what was coming. And so this is what I saw at the time 4 years ago. By spreading the fake news meme, the elitists behind the American power centers are able to attack growing independent media icons by painting them as propagators of false Russian propaganda. The media is also using this fake news meme and Russian propaganda and the Russian prop to accuse Trump of being an illegitimate president, further playing into the Trump is an outsider narrative. So what I mean by that is those of you, when you see the media attacking Trump, you think, see, they're attacking him. It's because he's a good guy, because he's an outsider and he's fighting them. And all of this is being done with the goal of keeping the domestic front as divided as possible while selling the brainwashed masses into another war. Coincidentally, all of this is taking place while the corporate media spreads lies about Syria and Russia. Now, we haven't seen all-out war with Syria happen, but we have seen what Trump came in and he dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. He has helped prop up the lies about Afghanistan, about Syria, the lies that have been exposed by journalists about gas attacks in Syria. Trump helped all that happen, despite the belief that some of you have that he is some kind of outsider. And the final point here that I wrote 4 years ago, Trump is the great divider, playing his role to keep the people fighting while the parasite classes take down the independent media and sell the American public into a proxy war with Russia. Will you allow this game of deceit and misdirection to lead you down a path of ignorance, jingoism, and death? That's how I ended that article. And right now I'm working on part 2 of this article. It's going to be called The Establishment's Plan to Divide, Part 2. It'll be called COVID-19, The Great Reset, and the New Normal. And I'm really excited to share that with you guys. And it'll be coming out in the next week or two. It's going to take me some time to put it all together. But I think that I can kind of see where we're headed and and maybe where the next 4 years are headed. And I know some of you aren't going to agree with my assessment, and that's fine. But I think if you're honest with yourself, if you haven't been honest yet, then you'll understand that Trump is not on the side of freedom or liberty. Even if you hate the left, or you think that the Antifa and the Marxists or whatever are your enemy, that doesn't mean that Trump is a good guy. So just recognize that. All right. So the final question I have for you guys is, what kind of mask should I wear? Yeah, look, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I did all the stories earlier in the show. I showed you the studies about the masks, and and I get it. I think that, I think that despite everything, I'm gonna start wearing a mask, and that's just my personal choice. You guys can be angry at me or whatever. But what I would like is for you guys to help me decide what type of mask I'm gonna wear. So I know that it's becoming a fashion statement now, and I really don't like that, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because people are terrified. And I think that, I might as well just go ahead and do what everybody else is doing, because people are going to shame me if I go out, and I have to decide, guys. So which one of these should I wear? I'm thinking about maybe the avocado mask. This one looks like a good fit for me, maybe. Or maybe this one, the lettuce face cover. Though I've kind of narrowed my choices down. So, I mean, go ahead and just vote in the comments, and then I'll let you guys know which one I pick up. I'll go to the grocery store probably tonight, and I'll grab a couple of avocados and maybe a head of lettuce, and I'll have extra. So if anybody else wants one, you guys let me know. But I really think I'm leaning towards this lettuce. I think it's going to fit my face better. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. And I think that's going to do it for tonight, guys. I thank you guys. I appreciate you guys for listening to the show, and for sharing this crazy world with me. And hopefully some of the things that I've said have been inspiring or interesting, or I don't know, entertaining at the least. That's what I aim for, guys. I try to throw some jokes, try to make this interesting, but hopefully informative, because we are dealing with a lot of crazy shit. We're dealing with so much insane stuff in the world right now that it's going to be very difficult for us to move forward without taking some time to laugh, without taking some time to sit down and have a drink or smoke a joint or just give somebody a hug, because I really empathize, and I'm sorry for those of you who have been self-isolating and avoiding people. If you haven't had any human contact in a long time, I'm sorry. I mean, that sucks. And I hope that you feel like you can soon. I'm not going to tell anybody how to live their life, but I haven't been masking up. I haven't been touching elbows. I've been hugging. I've been shaking hands. I've been hanging out with people, hanging out with family and friends. I have been washing my hands because that's just good things to do. I have been dosing up on vitamin C every day. Maybe that's why I feel so confident, because I'm taking care of my own health and I'm not depending on other people to take care of my health. But that's just me. Other people think that society should do things so they feel safe. But I think that's a very dangerous way to look at the world. The world is not here to conform to your life. The world is not here to conform to your views or to conform to your outlook. We are here as free, powerful, beautiful people to carve whatever path we want for ourselves, to trailblaze, and to be the best that we can be. And so fuck society, fuck conforming. If what you like looks like what they tell you on the TV to look like, then that's fine. But don't listen to them and do what they say simply because you're afraid to do something different. We need to be willing to be ourselves. It is more important than ever, probably at this time, to be ourselves and to step up and to say, hey guys, maybe I don't believe what you guys believe. Maybe I have my own opinions, and maybe that should be okay. We're living in a time now of cancel culture and shut everybody down. It's the right, it's the left. There's snowflakes on all sides. It's important to stake your claim and say, world, this is me and all my beauty and all my flaws, and fuck you if you don't love it. And if you don't like it, that's fine, but I'm going to be here being me, and you go over there and be you, and we can respect each other. We can have the freedom to talk and to communicate. We can have the freedom to disassociate, but I won't use force against you. I won't call the cops on you. I won't snitch on you. I will respect your right as a free, beautiful, powerful human being. And instead, we got a bunch of Karens, and I don't know what the male equivalent of Karen is. Maybe something like Mark, maybe. But Mark and Karen, all of them running around and trying to control our lives and tell us where to go and what to do. I mean, it's a lot to deal with. So it's up to each of us, though, to step up and to be the individuals that we want, to encourage others to be the individuals that they want, and to help those who we can. Like I said before, guys, I'm not always my best person on Facebook or on YouTube comments or Twitter or whatever. I can be snarky. I can be an asshole just like everybody else. But at the end of the day, in my heart of hearts, I care about you, and I want each of us to have the best life that we can. But it's going to be rough, guys. We have a difficult road ahead of us. This great reset and everything that they have planned, these are not conspiracies. These are realities that are right here in front of us. And either we're going to start dealing with them and we're going to start facing them, front on and looking at them, or we're going to deal with the repercussions. Everything we do today will shape the world that is coming. If we do nothing now, the people we love, our children, our children's children, the 7 generations and beyond, are going to have a very difficult life. So it's up to us to decide where the world goes from here. We can shape it. So what are you going to create? Until next time, guys, thank you so much for listening. Please bookmark my website, theconsciousresistance.com. Follow me on all my platforms, and let me know how I can help, how we can collaborate together. And please keep spreading the truth. Till next time, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.